You know what I hate more than anything? Getting bent over the barrel without the common decency of a dinner first. So this video is about batteries, everybody's favorite consumable, and the one that I'm most sick of dealing with. So I was perusing the internet, and I came across some of these AA cells that are lithium. They're lithium ion or lithium polymer based battery. Now, if any of you have experience with these things, they've come a long way. Lithium ion, lithium polymer batteries are amazing technology. And I'm looking at something like this. This is an 8-pack of a no-name brand, 8-pack on eBay, about as cheap as you can get them, right? 44 bucks for 8. And I happen to know that the 18650 cells, which are about 3 times the size of these physically, are incredibly inexpensive. So we pop over and we look at this 50-pack of 18650 cells, and I can get 50 of them for $27.99 with free shipping. So I started doing some research on why, and it turns out, well, these are used in industry, so they're cheap. They make a ton of them and they're cheap. These are not used in industry. These are used by consumers, aka suckers. So we get the consumer upcharge. It is not a superior battery in any way. It's no different than the 18650s, other than it's even smaller and requires less material to make. But we get killed because it's a plug-and-play lithium device for your average Joe. So, did a little bit more figuring and fixing, and found that a cell called a 14500 is just like a smaller version of the 18650. And same thing here, we're on the commercial side. So the cost, here's a 10-pack of 14500s for $10.99. This is the same size cell as the AA. The only difference is it's 3.7 volts. So we have to figure out how are we going to get around that voltage discrepancy. This video is going to show you exactly how to do that. Getting sick of replacing 4 batteries and 7 doors on a pretty regular basis, started sniffing around for some options. So the first option is your basic rechargeable nickel metal hydride batteries. Those are not great batteries. They have a memory to them, and they frankly, they just don't last that well. But I know we have some great technology coming out, or that has come out, and the cost of which has dropped through the floor. This is an 18650 battery cell. This is a very common battery used in all kinds of different battery packs. Actually, there's cars that run on hundreds, if not thousands, of these batteries all arranged in a cell, and they're incredibly inexpensive. Their little brother is a 14500 cell, and the 14500 actually has to do with the dimensions of the battery in, I believe, millimeters. But 14500 happens to be the same size as your standard AA battery. Awesome. I can get a lithium 1200 milliamp. They make them up to 2500 milliamp. Actually, I have a bunch of those on the way, the 2500s. But it fits a AA sized spot, which is dangerous because this is not a 1.5 volt cell. This is a 3.7 volt cell, and your average AA's run anywhere from 1.6, 1.7 on the high end with a lithium, down to 1.2 for a rechargeable. So if I were to put 4 of these guys in this battery holder, I would fry whatever it is that I have that this is going into, so that's not a good thing. I'm going to explain towards the end of the video for newbies. If you don't know how to the basics of electricity, parallel circuits and series circuits, what that does to voltage and what that does to amperage, stay tuned. I will walk you through that. So if some of this goes over your head, don't worry about it. I'll go back. I just don't want to bore anybody that already knows that stuff, so I'm going to put that at the end of the video. So what you can do with something like this, I've got 4 batteries, and they're arranged in a series connection. So with 4 AA batteries, I'm putting out about 6 volts, somewhere in that range, give or take on the battery side. So these are 3.7. So all I need to do is put 2 of these guys in, and then I need to take these. This is an ultra cell. It's a dummy cell. There's nothing in it. It's emptier than a Kardashian's head, but it connects these 2. It's just a dummy cell. And I can run 2 of these guys in here. And now I have about a 7.5 volt pack, which is a little bit higher than what the doors are normally used to getting. However, any circuit is designed to work on some range of voltage. This is definitely about as high as I would want to push this one. I could probably get away. I bet you that thing would run if I put 3 dummies in here and just ran the 3.7 to it. Just would be very slow. But you can use this setup in just about anything that takes more than 1 AA battery. So if it's a 2 battery cell, like a flashlight, actually I'll grab you a flashlight, we'll give it a shot. So this is actually it's a nice Smith & Wesson LED flashlight that runs on 2 AA batteries. All I need to do is take one of my 3.7s and one of my dummy cells, and we're in business. So, pretty cool, right? The dummy cells are the nice way to do it if you don't want to be that fancy or don't want to order those dummy cells, which these cost about 50 cents a battery. And these guys cost about $1 a battery. So from a cost standpoint compared to a good AA brand name battery, you can buy one of these for about the same price as a good AA battery and less than a lithium battery. Hey, the dog says hi with her toy. But, so let's say you don't want to shell out for that extra 50 cents and do it the nice way. You can do something as simple as this. Take a close look at your circuitry. Focus! Let me pull this last battery out. So we know these 2 tabs are what give juice to the lock. So those connect to the negative post on one battery here, into the positive post on one battery here. So it's expecting the juice to flow this way, across to here, through this battery, and you'll see those 2 are connected. So over to this, through this battery, over to the negative side of the last cell. So all I really need to do is find the part that's broken here, which is between this, and make a simple connection on it. So I can take something as simple as a piece of little ground wire, a little snipped off piece of ground wire off Romex. And if I just make a little U here, and I stick that in, it's going to work. Don't believe me? I'll prove it. Alright, so here we are over at the door. I've got my 2 battery set up with my wanky wire. Just as easy as that. Running on 2 cells with 2400 milliamps. Well, actually, no, it's really not because they're in series. So 1250 milliamps at 7.5 volts or so, and it works great. Runs forever. So with that said, I'm going to cut off to the behind-the-scenes part of the basics, electronics 101, and explain to you exactly why this works. And also how to do it in a way where you're protecting your equipment and you're not going to blow something up, because like most of the things I do, this has the potential to destroy whatever it is you're doing if you're doing it wrong. So we're going to go through some of the basics that will keep you out of trouble there. Before I get to that too, I also want to mention pricing on these. So you can get a kit like this, which comes with a real basic 4-bay charger, and I believe I got a set of 8 batteries for less than 20 bucks. It was like $17.99 shipped. Super cheap stuff. There's a whole variety of different chargers, from single cell chargers on up to these massive battery banks and kits, for incredibly short money. All right, so let's go. Let's talk about the electronic portion here. Okay, so we'll take a battery. This can apply to basically any round cell. They're all 1.5 volts from AAA all the way up to D's for your everyday stuff. Now, obviously, there's special cells, little 12 volt, 23A, and then you get into button cells and all that stuff. But we're just talking about basic A's, AA's, AAA's, C's, and D's. These are 1.5 volt cells. The part with a little bump on the top is the positive. The butt end of it is the negative. So So if I just run leads off this thing, I'm getting 1.5 volts. That isn't enough for everything, so we often see a configuration like this with another AA right next to it, inverted the opposite direction. And what they will do is we need 3 volts for this, like a remote control, we'll say. So all I need to do is connect this wire, or connect to this side, and now I still have my negative here and my positive here. But what I get is I'm adding those voltages together, and I now get 6 volts out of that arrangement. That's how to increase voltage. And what voltage, the easiest way and the kind of the probably overused but very accurate description of it is to treat voltage and amperage, treat it like a stream. So voltage is the speed of which that water is flowing, and amperage is the volume of that water that's flowing. And that's a very accurate analogy because think about it, if you're standing in front of me and I shoot you with a squirt gun, that can have a lot of speed to it, but I'm not going to knock you over. Maybe I'm shooting 20 miles an hour out of that squirt gun, but it's a tiny little stream of it. It's going to get you wet, but it's not going to move you. Now, I could take say a 24-inch water main and have that water moving 10 miles an hour, and if I hit you with that at 10 miles an hour, I'm going to knock you over because of the volume and the power that's in there. So it's the same thing when you get electrocuted. Very high voltage doesn't kill people. Amperage is what kills you. You can really get zapped pretty good, and it'll feel funny, but at high voltage, it's not going to stop your heart. It's not going to kill you. Then at low voltage, even down as low as about 50 volts or so is, I believe, where the cutoff kind of is. At high amperage, even at 50 volts, that can stop your heart very easily. So different devices require different voltages and different amperage draws based on whatever that is. So if we're going to look at something more of a high amperage draw, they will take that same AA battery, and let's say this device needs, well, just to make life really easy, we're going to say this device needs 1.5 volts. And you'll put in multiple batteries, and don't worry about the arrangement sometimes, it depends on how it's wired, but you will have them, they will connect these two together. I should write down what this is. So this is series, and this is going to be parallel. When I connect the two positives together and the two negatives together, I'm still just at 1.5 volts. However, if this had 1 amp worth of current, I now have 2 amps. Whereas on this one, if these 1.5 volt cells also each had 1 amp of current, what I get out of this end is 6 volts, but it's still 1 amp. The amperage stays the same. So what you're doing is, when we're looking at something like this, the arrangement on this battery cell, let me just draw this guy out. Pretty good art skills, huh? Let's see, we're going to do the negative there, positive here, positive, positive, positive. So what they've done here is we need 6 volts, but the amperage isn't that important. So all they're doing is connecting this to this, this to that, this to this, and I am left with a positive and a negative. And since it's doing this loop, this is what's called series, they're chained together in series, it's going to add up voltage. 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3, plus 1.5 is 4.5, plus 1.5 is 6 volts. And if, again, we are assuming these are 1 amp hour batteries, or what I'm putting in there is 1200 milliamps, so 1.2 amps. This would give me 6 volts at 1.2 amps. So hopefully that kind of makes sense, and you can see this wiring diagram in there, and what we're doing when I put this little piece of copper in here to connect these two, all I'm really doing here is I'm connecting this to this. I'm bypassing this whole thing because these batteries aren't here, so I want to connect this wire to this wire. So I'm taking my 3.7 volt lithium rechargeable cells and I'm adding those two together. Make sense? Now again, the voltage tolerance on a 6 volt device, it is handling this no problem. but not everything can do that. So don't, I guess my advice is don't try this in anything you aren't willing to burn up. So let's look at some different battery arrangements and try to get an idea of what you would need for that. So we did, obviously we did the one or the two battery cells where you're just going to take what would normally be 1.5 times 1.5 or plus 1.5, sorry, two together, coming out to 3 volts. Well, at 3.7, one battery plus the dummy load or the dummy pass-through puts you at 3.7 volts. You're well within an acceptable range to make that thing function without any problems. We looked at the next common step up, which is 4 AA batteries, and 4 times 1.5 is 6 volts. Pretty impressive math there, huh? Not bad. So you'll find that 2 of these batteries puts out 7.4 volts, or you're a volt 1.4 volts over what it nominally receives. And most devices are going to handle that. That's within range for most everything without doing any damage. However, I am not taking liability in case you burn something up, because this is, again, this is more of a hack than it is anything else. Kind of your next step up is things that take 6 AA batteries. So 6 times 1.5 is 9 volts. So you can try running that on the 2 lithium cells at 3.7 volts, or 3.7 volts to give you 7.4. 7.4 may run a device that requires 9. That's going to be a title of my channel, Trial and Error, on that one. Your next step up, though, going to 3 batteries at 3.7 volts is going to be 11.1. So there, you're a pretty substantial jump. I don't know that I would be, we'll say, ballsy enough to make that move. That might be a bit of an issue to switch to these on a 6 AA or 6 regular cell battery. 8 is the next common one, and you'll see 8 cells in a lot of different things, especially remote control cars and things like that, because 8 AA's times 1.5 equals a nice 12 volts. And 12 volts is a standard, one of the many standards, but a pretty standard voltage for a lot of devices, IP cameras, remote control cars, anything in the car world. Obviously, they're all 12 volt negative ground vehicles. So you get a lot in this range. So the closest you're going to get to that, it would be if you did 3 of these guys, 3.7 volts times 3 equals the 11.1. That's going to run the vast majority of your 12 volt required toy, whatever it is. Next step up, obviously, is to go to 4 of the 3.7 volt batteries, but that's going to put you at 14.8. Is that math right? 14.317? Yeah, 14.8. 14.8 is 2.8 volts higher than what it would nominally receive. So again, you've got to be cautious with that one. I would say most devices are going to handle that, especially if it's a car-related device. If you're trying to power a car plug-in thing with lithium batteries like this, you're not going to have a problem at 14.8 volts. When your car is running, on average, it runs about 13.5 volts to charge. To see a spike up to 14 or 15 volts is not going to be a problem for anything in the car world. More sensitive devices that really require that 12 volt on the nose, you run the risk of damaging it. So that's really it. I think that covers what I wanted to cover for everyone. And again, the goal here is to get away from the AA batteries. I'm not much of a tree hugger, but I am a cheap person. And when I can get a lithium battery for the same price as a regular battery, if I can find a way to make that work, I'm going to make it work. And if you have looked up regular AA 1.5 volt cells, and you look at the cost on those things, they're astronomical. They're asking ridiculous amounts of money for the exact same battery at a lower voltage so that it's a drop plug and play thing. And these are mass produced and used in all kinds of different industries. That's why these are so cheap. And they know the consumer that is just looking to replace AA batteries and not actually put any thought behind it is going to be willing to spend more money. I'm not that person. If you're watching my channel, you're probably not that person either. So this is a great workaround to get the commercial style cells and get them to work in a vast majority of your battery powered devices. So I hope this helps save you some money. I hope it doesn't blow anything up on you, but if it does, don't blame me. Thanks for watching. As always, if you appreciate this type of thing, please like and subscribe. I would appreciate that. And as always, any questions, throw them down in the comment section, and have a great day.